The Bank of Canada has adjusted the benchmark interest rate by 25 points, the first rate cut since March 2020. A lot of you were waiting for this to get back on the action. So today, let's talk about how this will actually affect the market, how is the market right now, and where are the best opportunities for buyers in Ottawa. Hey, welcome back, guys. Henrick Mathieu, realtor and founder of the Mathieu Group. We help dozens of families buy, sell, and relocate to Ottawa every year. So if you need help with any of this, let us know. We'd be happy to help you. And I want to apologize. I'm sorry. This update is quite late, but I messed up the audio last week, so I had to reshoot the whole thing. But here we are. Let's do this. All right. So let's start with the rate because I know that you guys are really excited about that one. So I think we can and should all rejoice that we finally get some relief from the Bank of Canada, right? It's been a very stressful and very painful 2 years, and it finally looks like we are coming out of it. However, I think it's important for us to manage our expectations. The big question here, is this going to make homes more affordable? Well, no, not really, and it's most likely going to be the opposite. I've mentioned this multiple times on my channel before, but when the rates are going up, the effect on buyers is twofold. One, buyer confidence is coming back. So a lot of buyers that were on the sidelines, kind of living in fear that the rates were going to go up again, are now confident enough that they won't. So they are coming back on the market, and that reduced the inventory. Two, with each decrease in rate, a new cohort of buyers are seeing their buying power increase enough for them to jump back in the market, also reducing the inventory. Simple math here, when we have less inventory, it affects supply and demand and it results in higher prices. On the flip side though, an increase in sales might bring back more and more sellers to the table that were also very uncertain about jumping in the market. In last month's update, I mentioned that listings were already up by more than 50% compared to last year, which is already amazing, and May was pretty similar. Seeing that the economy is getting healthier could be the signal a lot of sellers were waiting to finally list their home and get in on the action. Another big positive impact is that if buyer confidence is coming back, so is builder confidence. Historically, small decreases don't have an immediate response from the builder, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. They are usually pretty cautious, right? They're still dealing with expensive materials, labor shortage, and the crazy amount of red tape, and those remain pretty unaffected by rates. Realistically, the first really good indicator that construction is likely to pick up significantly is when the market absorbs its current inventory. Builders are not incentivized to build more if they can offload what they already built. So having more buyers in the ecosystem should give them a nudge, and at some point would mean an increase in new homes in the city. Stress test is another pain in the ass for a lot of people. Even with lower rates, you still get tested at 6-7%. So it's still pretty difficult for some people to get pre-approved. And the idea that the stress test will be modified or even removed is now completely out the window. So we just have to deal with it. Now, from what my contacts in the mortgage world are telling me, the rates remained somewhat unaffected for now because the bank preemptively lowered them a few months prior to the announcement. And since I personally don't know a lot of people that recently took a variable mortgage, the rate going down like 0.25% is not doing much to lower monthly payments just yet. So I'm sorry if you feel like I'm raining on your parade. It's not what I'm trying to do, obviously. Like I said, I think it's a good thing that rates are coming down, obviously, but the real tangible effects are going to be felt down the road. This is a baby step, but a very important one nonetheless. Now, the best thing and most important thing that you can do right now is subscribe to my channel and stay informed, obviously. So what did real estate in Ottawa look like for the month of May? It was unsurprisingly steady. We got a good increase in new listings for the second month in a row with 3,034 new residential listings. This is 23.2% above the 5-year average. And that tells us that sellers are more and more confident that properties are moving and activity is actually picking up, right? Active listings at the end of May were 72.2% above the 5-year average. That is a big number of listing and a big reason why prices are actually quite steady. Number of sales in May was a bit lower than usual with 3.7% below the 5-year average, and year to date we are trailing at 5.7% behind last year. But this is most likely because a lot of buyers were waiting for the announcement of Bank of Canada just made about the rates to see how it would affect their purchasing power before actually moving forward. Months of inventory remain quite steady. Single family went down to 2.1 in April and is now back at 2.9 last month due to the important amount of new listings on the market like I just mentioned. Townhomes are still the lowest of all property class at 1.6, and that means shorter time on market, some sold over ask, and some bidding wars for top-notch properties. And a side note to this, 3-story townhomes, which are kind of a good first-time home buyer choice, are flying off the shelf. I literally cannot book my showing fast enough. It is crazy. So there's definitely a big demand for that property class. Apartment and condos are sitting at 2.9, and you can see on the chart right here that months of inventory varies a little bit since January, but we are in seller's market territory regardless for a while now. One thing that we noticed though is that a lot of sellers seem to think that the market is actually way hotter than it actually is, especially now with the rate cut. That translates into more home lingering on the market that ultimately will reduce their price, and this contributes to an increase in the inventory that you see here. All right, so moving on to median prices, single family sits at $762,000, townhomes $565,000, apartments and condos $397,000. Average prices for all homes sold in May was $690,000, a small increase of 0.8% from last May, and this is actually really good. Usually we expect prices to go up when the market picks up like this, but the crazy amount of sellers listing their properties right now is keeping the inventory at about the same ratio, so prices are cruising for now. If we see further rate drops, like I said, it's hard to predict precisely what's gonna happen, but the most likely scenario is prices are gonna go up. So now let's talk about finding good opportunities. Obviously, there's some good deals here and there across the city that you might be able to find, and those are most often off-market deals, but I'm talking about neighborhood trends here. There's really 3 communities that are looking pretty hot right now when you take a look at the data. Number 1 would be Castleman. Granted, it's a bit out of the way, but average prices went up 19% compared to last year. There are more listings and activity is actually really picking up. Looking strictly at the numbers, they aren't super impressive, but relative to the size of their market, it's actually showing a lot of growth. So it's probably have something to do with the newer, there's a massive Ford distribution center that was built up across the highway, so it probably brought a lot of people there, so that might be a reason, but look into it. Number 2 would be Clarence Rockland. Listings and sales are picking up quickly. We're talking 54% more listings, 64% more sales than last year's. And the best part is that the average sales price is only up by 4%. And I bet that the fact that more and more companies, including the government, are now requiring employees to come back to office has something to do with this. All the people who bought away from the city during COVID are now getting forced to commute back into town, and they probably don't like it much, right? So if you work in the East End or from home and you know that it's going to stay that way for a decent amount of years, you should look into it. And finally, number 3 would be Russell. Listen, we saw a jump of 121% more new listing last month compared to last year, and the median price is also down 4%. Month of inventory down there went from 1.1 last May to 2.5 right now. Plus, the community of Amber and Russell is really growing nicely. It's not that far away. And for those of you who are looking to, slow down the pace of life a little, there are solid deals out there, so check it out. Now, there's a lot happening in Ottawa, and the bylaws that our city councilors vote for will shape our city for decades to come, and especially when it comes down to zoning. And there's currently one of those bylaws on the table right now that could change everything. And I share everything about it in last month's update right here.